You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't pass on the Savage Lovecast.
Hi, I'm Brian Safi.
And I'm Erin Gibson, and we're so excited to be filling in for Dan Savage this week.
If you don't know who we are, we host the Throwing Shade podcast on MaximumFun.org. And what we do is we take an issue that affects ladies.
And gays.
And we treat them with much less respect than they deserve. And Dan so graciously asked us to do the opening of the Savage Lovecast this week, so we're thrilled to do it.
And if you hadn't heard the word, Barack Obama this week sent out a love letter to all women of the world.
Via
a feminist manifesto via
Glamour magazine. It'll be in the September issue, which what could be more glamorous than saying that?
Nothing.
Full Anna Wintour moment.
That's all. Different magazine, but same idea.
No, I know, but there was a documentary called The September Issue about all the inner workings of Anna Wintour's office.
I know about it.
Yeah.
I wrote it.
She's the only... Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It was scripted?
Yeah, it was all scripted.
Oh, I could have sworn it was a documentary.
Grace, Anna, they're all phenomenal actresses.
They must be. Yeah, but so Barack Obama wrote this incredible essay, really a he for she essay.
Yeah. Hashtag yes, all women.
Pretty much. And said some really cool things about feminism and about equality for women. And so
you should read the whole thing, but I mean, we'd like to break down kind of the highlights of it.
Can I just say quickly?
Yes.
Is everyone fully appreciative of what we've had the past 8 years?
No, it's like anything. Now that he's about to be gone, everyone's like, no. It's been so good. You can't leave.
And I know that I think for a lot of people, they felt that it started off sort of slowly, but man, has it picked up. And you look at Barack and Michelle Obama, and honestly, like, I feel like I really hope we know how lucky we've had it. So smart, so beautiful, so funny, so sexy, so glamorous. That picture of them, the Trudeaus. Didn't you want in on that?
Look, to each his own. I've never wanted to be in a foursome with political royalty until that moment right there.
100%. Although it would have been a fivesome, so you would have had to kick someone out for it to be.
I watch them have sex, but I just jerk off on the side. That's my idea of a foursome.
Fair.
So he says a couple things. He starts off by basically saying, like, I think this is an important way to start out. Like, it's very easy to start complaining about all the things that are wrong right now, and there are a lot of things wrong in a lot of areas. Feminism being only one of them.
Yeah.
But the idea...
Another being that my shoe size is, I'm at a half size right now.
Oh, and 1 foot?
And so if you're buying, in other words, like we still haven't figured out shoes.
Exactly. So how are we going to figure out gay rights?
Exactly.
Feminism.
It's an uphill battle.
Racial equality. But he starts off by acknowledging, like, in the past, if you look at the past 100 years, past 50 years, and really the past 8 years he's been in office, life has been made significantly better for, he says, for my daughters than it was for my grandmothers. And I say that not just as president, but also as a feminist. And I think it's so important that he kicks it off that way. People are very afraid of the word feminist still, weirdly, even post Beyonce VMAs.
Yeah.
We
live in a post Beyonce VMA world, and we need to accept that.
When the woman who sang Bills stands in front of a sign that says feminist, no one should be afraid to identify that way.
No.
Ever again.
He also said something that I thought was beautiful. He said, when everybody is equal, we are all more free. He went on to praise this past century's American women and the progress they've made and how far we have to go. He said that it was important to his daughters that he be a feminist because now that's what they expect of all men. By the way, those dogs, again, just the perfect family.
Everybody, just doing it right.
I love that she went to Lollapalooza instead of the DNC, and people were so mad about it.
I would have too.
Of course.
Her dad's out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also think there's another thing he said about how important it is to acknowledge how far we've come. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't talk about all the progress we've made, if we only think about the stuff that is wrong, it is a complete disservice to anyone who spent their lives fighting for for equality.
Oh, 100%.
Hundreds of women have come, died, put their sashes on, said, I want to vote.
Exactly.
We can't think about the sash ladies.
No.
I mean, we can't forget the sash ladies.
No.
And I know they're called suffragettes, but I call them sash ladies. Because I think it's more respectful.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That is when wearing a sash was considered progressive. It is absolutely not.
It's lost. Now it's bridesmaids, it's penis straws. That's the only.
That's it. He said, we need to keep changing the attitudes that raises our girls to be demure and our boys to be assertive, that criticizes our daughters for speaking out and our sons for shedding a tear. We need to keep changing the attitude that punishes women for their sexuality and rewards men for theirs.
I agree. And by the way, bringing men into this issue, because, I mean, he set it up top, I think, subtly, and then said it basically flat out, is that it's not just how women fight for their rights. It's about how people help them fight for their rights. And also, let's look at the way boys are treated, too. These, like, binary, like, black and white ideas of what gender and anything, stereotypes of what women should be, what men should be, are dangerous for everybody.
Yeah.
And especially, as we know, dangerous if you're, if you're divorced and you're a dad and you want to babysit your kids, but you know that you can't have custody and you've got to dress like a woman.
Are you talking about Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yes, I'm just saying, like, it's important to get out of those things so that you can masquerade as a woman.
Right.
So you can see your kids.
So that's what you took from the Obama
Yes. Oh, sorry.
essay.
That was the whole thing I took.
Got it. Fair. Can we talk about the major disappointment this week?
Well, and what bad timing, this Sarah Jessica Parker interview in Mary Claire.
So Sarah
Another
Jessica
ladies
Parker,
magazine that's like not calling her out on this.
Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City, upcoming divorce. That, by the way, I didn't
The show.
She and Matthew Broderick have never been better. Sarah Jessica Parker recently said for Mary Claire, I am not a feminist. I don't think I qualify. I believe in women and I believe in equality, but I think there's...
So she should have stopped and then been like, oh, wait. No, I do know the definition of feminism.
That is exactly the definition of feminism.
Advocating for the equal rights of women.
But I think
period.
there's so much that needs to be done that I don't even want to separate anymore. I'm so tired of separation that don't do a show called Divorce. I just want people to be treated equally. That is exactly what feminism is. And I have to say, I don't
even know what her point is. Is her point that everyone needs to be like, because she calls herself a humanist, which is like, fine. Great for you for being for the human race.
I think what she's saying is, I think when you put a label like feminism on something, it acts as more of a separator. But see, that's the same argument for saying
it's being like,
all lives matter. It's the same thing, which we just don't live in that time. In a perfect world, that everyone is being paid equally, that everyone is socially equal, that I don't know, we've had just as many women presidents as we have had men presidents.
Wait, what do you mean?
Just that it's an equal world. That,
in this world, I was like, wait, we've had that?
Oh yeah, don't you know?
I've been in a cave?
Yeah. That in that perfect world, sure.
Yeah.
Maybe then we could start using language like this. We're just not there. I think her intentions were good. I think she meant the right thing. It's just, this is not a world we live in.
I think I have a different take on it. I agree with what you're saying, but I think that there are women out there, there's a generation of women who, I'm going to say it, are mostly white, liberal, elitist kind of women who have been rich too long and who really don't understand the struggles and why feminism is actually necessary on a very base level, and somehow fear that word because they were taught that it means like militant, like dick people who just run around
burning your bra.
Yeah,
right.
But being a feminist does not mean you're an anti-maninist or something. It doesn't. It's not one or the other. It's
well,
not
that's
like
good
that.
because I am a meninist, and
You're a meninist?
Fully believe in the equal rights of men to women.
Oh, Brian, I don't know if you're going to be able to handle the guests today, Tegan and Sara.
Coming up on the Magnum version of the show, we have twin queer pop stars Tegan and Sara. So exciting. Dan, thank you so much for having us on the show this week. We really appreciate it. Again, our podcast is Throwing Shade, and we're actually on tour right now.
We're coming to Seattle and a lot of other cities.
Yeah, we're doing 21 cities, so we're probably going to be in a city near you. You can go to www.throwingshade.com/tour for all the tour dates.
And if you can't make it, just give us a listen.
We want to thank Audible.com for their support of the Savage Lovecast. For a free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage. Today's episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/savage. Today's Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Me Undies, high quality, super comfortable, good looking undies. Get 20% off your first order when you go to meundies.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. 26-year-old male living in the Midwest. Currently, my dad is going through the beginnings of a divorce for the second time with my now current stepmom. I'm having a real hard time dealing with this because they are choosing to place all the blame on me. I have been staying with them for a little while to try and get back on my feet. I had a really rough year last year. And it's not going well, and now they're saying that they are getting divorced because of me, because my stepmom is saying that she doesn't want me involved in her life in any way, shape, or possible. I don't want to be involved in their life, obviously, and I worry about my dad. I'm just not sure if it is my fault in all of this. I feel like they're just sort of using the excuse of me staying there to circumvent their own problems and push the self-destruct button on their own marriage, or at least she is. What can I do to make the situation? Any help would be appreciated.
Lots of people your age are living at home these days. You really can't pick up an issue of the New York Times without finding stories about millennials moving back in with mom and dad because of student loan debt, or multi-generational households being the new thing, or, lots of stories after the 2008 economic collapse, the Great Recession, about people losing their homes, having to move back in with dad and stepmom. So your circumstance isn't unique, and what you've put your dad and stepmom through isn't unique. But I don't know. I can't say whether or not you were the straw that broke the camel's back. You were the last straw. I don't know what it's like to live with you. I don't know how long your stepmother had your father all to herself. Maybe realizing that dad came bundled with responsibilities to an adult child was too much for her, and she had to pull the ripcord. And it is slightly or partly about you, but in a way also about her and what she's willing to endure or put up with or shoulder, the responsibility she's willing to shoulder to be with your dad. And maybe she didn't sign up for kids, even adult kids, living in the house. And this is one of the reasons she wants to go, and maybe a good reason why she is the wrong wife, second or third, for your father. And so it is for the best that their marriage might be ending. I think what you should do in this case is pretend that you weren't told what you were told, because really they shouldn't have involved you in this. I don't think necessarily they should have said, oh, by the way, we're getting divorced, your fault. I don't think you say that to kids of any age, while at the same time accepting that maybe you did have some role in this. Your existence did, not necessarily through any fault of your own or any actions you took. You were in a tough spot. Your dad helped you out. Your stepmom, not down. What can you do about that? Your dad's first loyalty as your parent, as your biological parent, as your father, was to you, and he demonstrated that. And stepmom's going to peace out. You'll always have your dad. Be grateful. Be thankful. You guys can double date once you're on your feet.
Hi, Dan. I am a 22-year-old, and I have a question about my friends. My mom died when I was 19, and it was fairly sudden and really traumatic for me. And I have a great group of friends who were all very supportive and very loving for about a year after she died. And then after we hit the 1 year mark, it's almost started to feel to me like they were tired of hearing about it, and they were tired of my grieving. And I know that I know that they just wanted me to be okay because they love me, but it really just felt like a rejection of my grief, and that I had to get over it, and I didn't know how to. So I tried to fake it, and I tried to be okay around them, and then I ended up just isolating myself from them more and more. And since then, I've just sunk deeper and deeper into this depression. And now I'm talking to a therapist about it, but I've really been cutting myself off from these people for about a year and a half. And I feel like I could never even talk about her in a non-grieving way to them, which made it almost feel like she had died all over again, that I had to just completely cut my mother out of my life. And so I'm trying, I know that not being with my friends is probably a factor in my depression, so I'm trying to rebuild those relationships, and I just wanted your advice on how to start that. Should I tell them about what I've been going through? And if I should, can you tell me a way to do that where it doesn't sound like I'm attacking them for not dealing correctly with a problem that no 20-something should know how to deal with? Or do I just continue to fake it until it's all okay?
First, I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss, and I can empathize, even though I didn't lose my mother as early in life as you lost yours. I lost my mother when I was in my 40s. It's really traumatizing. It's really crushing. I was really close to my mom. Sounds like you were really close to your mom, too, and there were months there that I was just a basket case afterwards, standing in a grocery store and thinking of my mother for a second and crying in the grocery store like a grieving person. So I get it. I empathize. I hear you. But tracking the timeline here, you were 19 when your mother died. You're 22 now. Your friends listened to you and grieved with you and indulged you as they should for that year, as they should, period. Friends we want them in our lives to be indulgent of us and to help us, but also they're there to be indulged by us and helped by us and to experience pleasure and joy with us. But they did that for a year. They were doing all the right things, everything you needed them to do for a year. And then after a year, you got this sense from them that they were ready to move on or expected you to be ready to move on. And now it's a year and a half later. So it's 2.5, 3 years since your mother's death. And it sounds like you're still in a place of white hot, intensely felt grief. And the appropriate person to be speaking to, if that's where you are 2.5, 3 years after the death of a parent, even at your age, even as young as you were when your mother died, the appropriate person to be really leaning on, really depending on, really unpacking all of that with is a therapist. I'm really glad that you're seeing a counselor and a therapist now, because there are loads that we can expect our friends to bear, and then there are loads that may be too much for our friends to bear, and we need to call in the cavalry. We need to bring in a professional. If our grief is crushing and overwhelming us, it may be crushing and overwhelming our friendships as well. And we have a right to expect people to rush to our side in an emergency, in a crisis, when we're grieving. We don't have a right to expect them to remain at our side indefinitely or eternally, because they have their own emergencies. They have their own crises in their lives. They have their own emotional needs. And I don't want to make friendship sound commodified. I scratch your back, you scratch mine, but there is a give and take there. There is a sort of circularity to it. I'm here for you when you need me, and you're here for me when I need you. But if you, 3 years after your mother's death, 2.5 years after your mother's death, are stuck in a place of such intense grief that you can't be there for them or meet their needs or place this grief yet, you never get over it. I'm still not over it. I listened to your call and I got choked up and weepy because it was reminding me of my pain and it was reminding me of my mother. You really never get past this. But it needs to find a place in your emotional life, in your psyche, find a place in your friendships where it is a place you go occasionally. And I go there occasionally with my friends. If you can get to a place where you are loving, giving, attentive, indulgent yourself, fun to be with. We also hang out with people that we like and our friends for pleasure. But if you can get to that place and then every once in a while you want to say, hey, I just need to talk about my mom for a minute because I'm feeling sad, I bet they would go there. And if they didn't go there when you said something like that, yeah, maybe not friends. Also, look at the time of life we're talking about here. 19 when your mother died, you're 22 now. a lot of people at that stage, the transition really from high school to college, move. If people go to college, not everybody goes to college, not everybody has to go to college, but people move, their social networks expand, they meet new people. It is a stage of life where we tend to shed some friends. And for that to coincide for you with the loss of your mother and this grief, what a horrible coincidence, right? Because you may be attributing to your loss, to your grief, the ends of these relationships or the withering of some of these relationships that may not have withered, that may have withered in the same way, even if your mother hadn't died, even if you weren't struggling with this grief, just because of this moment, this time in your life. So I think you really need to take a look at these relationships, setting aside, if you can, the prism of your mother's death and your grief and the impact that had on them, and just look at them and assess them and ask yourself, are these people that at 22 I would have been friends with still? Are these people I would have lost anyway, regardless of my mother's death or my grief or this place that I was stuck for so long? Are these relationships where we just would have gone our separate ways because of life, because of circumstance, because of logistics, because of new experiences? Because you went to this college and I went to that college and you did that year abroad and you got a boyfriend and moved away with him for a while. Sometimes relationships, friendships, naturally, without anybody being an asshole, without anybody being malicious, of their own due course, end. And perhaps those ends coincided with your period of grief and you are misattributing callousness or malice to your friends, or misattributing the ends of those relationships to your behavior or how grief-stricken you were during that stage. To really examine those two things. But good that you're talking to a therapist now. Also good that you are reaching out to these people, reaching out and trying to reestablish these friendships. Another thing that happens at this stage, 19 to 22, you sometimes shed friends in the chaos and excitement of going off to college or whatever, getting out of high school, that you wish you hadn't shed. And somebody has to be the first to reach out and say, hey, I would really like to reconnect. And then it picks up where it left off. So I'm glad you're reaching out. Good thing you're reaching out. That's not going to be in every case. You may not hear that in every case. You're unlikely to hear, fuck you, I wish you hadn't called, but not in every case when you attempt to reconnect with someone is that connection going to return. But you can make an effort. You can also make new friends. You can form new relationships. And while you're working on this, work with your therapist on placing your grief, on keeping it not contained, not discarding the memory of your mother, but living with it, walking with it, honoring it, but keeping it in proportion, not allowing it to overwhelm you. You can have it and experience it and live it and remember her and always grieve her. It has been 7 or 8 years. I am still grieving my mother's death without it swamping every moment, without it dominating every conversation, without it being the focus of all of your needs for support or indulgence from your friends. And that may require a bit of an effort on your part. That may require a little faking it till you make it. And that's not necessarily, that whole fake it till you make it thing, it has a bad rap because we don't like to think of ourselves as fake. And accusing someone of faking it isn't exactly a compliment. But sometimes going through the motions, pretending you're okay with something, helps you get to that place where you are okay with it. Not okay with your mother's death. You will never be okay with your mother's death. That's not what I mean. I mean to that place where you are centered and have achieved a balance and are at peace with mortality, which is shitty and unfair. Mortality sucks. It's for the birds. But we have to, over the course of our lives, reconcile ourselves to that. Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more. Audiobooks are great to listen to when you're driving, on the subway or bus, doing chores around the house, or at the gym. For our listeners, Audible is offering a free 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/savage and browse their unmatched selection of audio programs and download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. One audiobook you may want to consider is You'll Grow Out of It by Jessie Klein, narrated by Jessie Klein. Jessie is the head writer at Inside Amy Schumer, and she is hilarious in her own right, and her collection of essays is hysterical, and you can have it read to you by Jessie Klein herself for free by going to audible.com/savage. Once again, that's a free 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/savage.
Hey, Dan. I'm a caller from the East Coast, 22-year-old male, bisexual. So I've been in a relationship for the past few months, about 4 months now, and my girlfriend, she keeps getting ridiculously drunk and losing control of her mouth in a way where she'll just say things that are just totally off color. And even though, like, we'll have a talk when she's in these states of mind, she doesn't remember it the next day. She doesn't remember the talk. She doesn't remember what she said or anything she did. So, we talk in the sober state of mind the next day, and this has happened 4 times now, 4 separate times, And so, everything else aside from this is great. Sex is great, and we click really well. We're both really into music, and want to pursue music careers together. She's a teacher. She's a wonderful person. This doesn't take away from her being a fantastic person in any way. It's just this one thing that it fucks me up. Because how can someone tell you that they love you so much and then treat you like shit, and willingly put themselves in these state of minds, and then, think that they can say, oh, I was drunk, it won't happen again, and then it does.
Don't hang out with your girlfriend when she gets drunk. Period. The end. You know when she's reaching that tipping point. You know when it's gone from a couple of drinks and a buzz to that place where she's not going to remember what she said, or she's going to use how drunk she is as an excuse to say things that she wouldn't say sober and be mean and vicious and treat you like shit in front of people. Remove yourself from those situations. Tell her the next time you have a conversation, the next time it happens is the last time it happens. Tell her, this happened again. You said this, you said that, you don't remember. You apologize. You say it won't happen again. The next time you drink, it happens. Or usually when you drink, it happens. You say it won't happen again, but it keeps happening again. So here's the new deal. The new deal is when you are getting to that point where I think this is about to happen, that's the end of the evening for me. I'm out. And go. Mean it and go. And she can stay wherever it is you guys are, at the party, at the bar, with other friends. She can stay, or she can leave with you. Maybe not go over the Drunken Falls into shit-talking bay, but go. You don't have to be there. You don't have to be her punching bag when she's drunk. One of our sponsors today is Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Get approved for a mortgage online in minutes using your phone or tablet. This completely online process helps you ditch the stacks of financial documents by using cutting-edge technology to make getting a mortgage more convenient than ever before. You can also safely share bank statements and pay stubs with the touch of a button. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/savage. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Dan, I have probably the worst taste in women. I don't always know that I'm doing it wrong, though. I either pick clones of my narcissistic mother, or I pick women that seem amazing and then they just turn into monsters. And I try my best to be honest and righteous and GGG and just do everything I can for them, because I want it to work and I want to be a good partner. And I realize that the common denominator is me. So I'm doing everything I can to try to fix me and be good. But it always goes to shit. And I just don't know what to do. And I'm at a point right now after my last breakup where my girlfriend broke into my Facebook account and posted a bunch of stuff on there. And all my friends and family, saw it, obviously. And I'm completely humiliated and ashamed. I'm honestly thinking about just giving up. Just giving up women altogether and just working out and seeing sex workers if I need release. I make good money. I'm not a bad-looking guy. I am in pretty good shape. I feel like I shouldn't be having this much trouble.
I was calling because I wanted to ask, how many shitty relationships are we talking about here, and how old are you?
Well, I'm 37, and gosh, I think they've all been shitty if I think about it.
Well, you use the phrase common denominator to describe yourself, which means you are an attentive listener of the Savage Lovecast. Because I say that all the time. When people call and they say, every relationship I've ever been in has been awful, I'm like, hey, you're the common denominator, right? So you're familiar with that phrase. You must be then familiar with every relationship you're ever going to be in is going to fail until one doesn't.
Exactly.
Which means
and I get that.
That it's not unheard of for somebody to have a string of bad or failed relationships. And when a relationship, quote unquote, fails, and not every relationship that ends is necessarily a failure, also something else I like to unpack. But when a relationship ends, sometimes there's hurt feelings, sometimes there's recrimination, sometimes there's accusations and anger. And it can end up feeling like, oh my God, I'm terrible at this relationship, and everyone I'm in a relationship with is a monster. Hopefully not every woman you've ever dated or broken up with has gone to the lengths the last one did and broken into your Facebook or something similar and attempted to ruin or humiliate you.
Well, I will say, there's been a common string of violation of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that has happened pretty consistently. And so
like somebody digging through your email, digging through your phone, digging through your online stuff,
looking at my journal, like
are you
all
giving,
that stuff.
Are you giving somebody cause to be concerned, or are you just dating a string of paranoids? And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we pull the short straw again and again, and sometimes it feels like we pulled the same short straw again and again. But
I think it's a little bit of both, to be quite honest. I'm sure, I have, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, and I'm not I don't make the most money in the world, but I make a little bit of money and I'm a little bit attractive. And
okay.
So
we should all be so lucky.
And I don't know how to put this, but I don't really hold a lot of stock in attractiveness when it comes to my partners. And so I guess some folks would say I tend to date down. I don't really feel like that. I just feel that I don't know how to put it, but I place more stock in, how the person treats me.
Their character. Which is what everybody says that they want. Okay. But,
right.
But maybe this can induce a little paranoia on the part of the women you're dating. If they're rattling around going, he could do so much better than me. Why is he with me?
This tends to be the common, the common comment that I get from them all. Why are you with me? And you could do so much better.
And this is
yada yada yada.
And this is a two-edged sword, because what people say is they want men, or they want everybody to be more like you, willing to see past the superficial and date somebody for who they are as a person on the inside. And on the other hand, some people date down because then they're in the power position. Because then there's this dynamic in the relationship where they know you could do better, and they know that you could do better. And it can be a way that someone attempts to control the other person. I'm the hotter one. I'm the one who makes more money. My way or the highway, because you're not going to get somebody better looking than me. You're not going to get somebody better off than me. So what I want, what I say goes. But it doesn't sound like you're doing that part of it.
No, I'm not doing that part of it. But I am doing the safe, this is a safe person. I can admit that.
A safe person? How do you mean?
Well, like you said, I am perhaps a little bit better looking than you. I perhaps make a little bit more money than you.
Okay,
I'm not going to treat you bad.
This is it.
You're someone whom...
Okay, this is it.
I don't have to worry about.
you are doing this. You are inducing a kind of paranoia and insecurity in the women that you're dating.
I'm trying not to, though.
I know.
I'm trying to reassure them. I'm trying to hey,
and that's
all
fine.
Good.
And that's fine. It's one thing to be able to date anybody because you're willing to date somebody attractive or somebody average or somebody objectively not as attractive as you, because what you really are concerned with is character and who they are as a person. And it's another thing to say, I date down because I want more power and control. And somebody may be grateful to have been dated down upon, but in the end, they're going to chafe against the perhaps subconscious sense that they're being controlled or that this is a power play, and it's going to make them feel insecure and crazy. And maybe act crazy. I don't want to say you're the author of this, because you would expect somebody would be happy to have you, but if you're attempting to manipulate them because they ought to be happy to have you. People rebel against that kind of manipulation. People lash out.
It's not power and control, because that's obviously, I won't say obviously, but that's honestly not my thing. It's not power and control. It's security. Like
Is it getting you security though?
Well, there you go.
No, it's not. Whatever you're doing, if this is a pattern, it's one thing to take an honest look at, what you've been doing and what you've been getting as a result and kind of relationships you've been having, and really take an honest look at it, really unpack it, maybe with some friends who watched the whole thing unfold and go, okay, that was just, I rolled the dice 3 times and it came up snake eyes 3 times in a row. Rare, but that fucking can happen. But it's another thing to look at that and think, all right, I keep doing X, Y, and Z and I keep getting shit for it. So maybe X, Y, and Z is the wrong strategy. And you should stop intentionally going out there implicitly, if not explicitly, nagging women in a way. I hate to use that pickup artist lingo, but if there's some undercurrent, I hate it too. That's why I never talk about that pickup artist shit on the show or in my column. I just fucking hate it, and I don't want to give it any more gas. Seems to be dying off. I don't want to reinflate it. But if women are getting this sense that one of the reasons you've picked them like you picked your other girlfriends is because they are inadequate or should be grateful to have you because you're slumming every time you throw your dick in them. People are like, in the long run, that's going to make somebody, that would make me crazy. There needs to be a kind of, not complete equality or basic equality, and sometimes inequalities can be stabilizing. Look at my own relationship. Terry's a lot hotter than me. I make more money than he does. Those are kind of two stabilizing influences. There are times I look at him and think, I couldn't do better. And there are times I think he must look at me and think, he pays the bills. And those get us through the fights, the breakup level fights. Like, I'm not going to break up with him. I can't do better than him. And he looks at me and goes, I'm not going to break up with him because I don't want to live on the street or whatever it might be. Right? So I'm not saying that people have to have equal incomes, equal levels of attractiveness, equal levels of everything, but there needs to be some
level of inequality on both sides.
Each person needs to bring something to the table that the other doesn't, or the other brings less of, and that can be stabilizing. But if you're just, you make less money than me, you're not as hot as me, you're not as this as me, you're not as that as me, I'm going to date you because where are you going to go? You know where they're going to go? They're going to go nuts is where they're going to go. So you can find somebody who's got a great character. Maybe she should make more money than you do. Or you can find somebody who's hot. Maybe she makes less money than you do. You can find somebody who brings a variety of things to the table where they got some shit going on that you don't, and you got some shit going on that they don't, and you, what's that hoary old phrase they used to use in marriage land? You complete each other. You complement each other. It doesn't sound like you're dating women where you complement each other. It sounds like you're dating women that you're selecting who should just live in an eternal state of gratitude to you for condescending to fuck them. Like, people, that'll make somebody crazy. That'll push somebody over the edge. Somebody will then retaliate because against you, like that woman. I'm not blaming you. People shouldn't go on people's Facebook profiles and try to fuck up their relationships with family and friends and colleagues. That's shitty and uncalled for. People shouldn't snoop, although asterisk, sometimes snooping retroactively is permissible depending on what you found out while you were snooping. And be careful when you snoop. You might find out things you can never unknow that you didn't need to know and maybe don't want to know. That said.
But there was nothing there. Like, I'll be honest, I was completely faithful to this girl. Like, I was over the moon for this girl. Like,
which is great, but on some level, that girl got that sense that you could take her or leave her, and she couldn't.
I really couldn't, though.
The prescription here that I'm going to give you, stop intentionally dating down. That doesn't mean, like, go hit on Donald Trump's ex-wife or whatever. That doesn't mean pursue women.
Not my type.
Doesn't mean like go after a Kardashian. Like, date women who are interested in you and you're interested in them. Stop dating down intentionally. Stop targeting women who you feel should be grateful to have you as if that's a stabilizing influence, because you now know that it isn't, that it's a destabilizing thing to select women with that criteria. And to also tell yourself every relationship fails until one doesn't. Maybe you just drew some short straws. You're going to change your approach a little bit, but you're not going to live in despair, cut off your dick, only go see sex workers, give up on relationships. You're going to approach them a little differently and see if you don't get a slightly different outcome. Okay?
God, that is terrifying, but okay.
It is, you know what? You know why it's terrifying? Because you're going to have to give up a little bit of power and control. And that's what a relationship requires. Giving up some power and control, ceding that to that other person. If you can't handle that kind of fear and terror, then maybe you should just go to sex workers for the rest of your life. But I think you can handle it.
I guess we're going to find out.
Good luck, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Whether you're wearing a suit or sweats, you spend almost 24 hours a day in your underpants. But instead of making a statement like Superman's tights under his everyday clothes, your underwear is probably kind of boring. MeUndies is here to change that. Every pair of MeUndies is made from sustainably sourced modal, a fabric that's twice as soft as cotton. Once you try them on, you'll understand why they're called the world's most comfortable underwear. And if you don't love your first pair of MeUndies, they're free. No questions asked. MeUndies has dozens of styles and limited edition prints to help you make a statement with your underwear, no matter who gets to see them. Shipping is free in the US and Canada, and you can save up to $8 a pair with the MeUndies subscription plan. Get the subscription or a single pair and get 20% off your first order when you go to MeUndies.com/savage. That's MeUndies.com/savage for 20% off your first order.
Hi, Dan. I'm the Tech Savvy at Risk Youth. I'm a 25-year-old woman. I've been in a wonderful relationship with my boyfriend for the last year, and we just recently got engaged. However, 4 months before I met my boyfriend, so about a year and a half ago now, I met a random guy in a tattoo shop. We went out for dinner. We ended up sleeping together. After that interaction, I felt pretty turned off by him because the sex was really bad, and I broke it off. But a week after our initial hookup, I saw him in the street, and he was a little bit drunk, and he asked me, "Can you walk me home?" which was nearby. In retrospect, I really regret agreeing to walk him home because once we entered his building, he pushed me against the wall and said that he was going to shove his cock into my ass. I was really disgusted and scared, and so I began to cry. I pushed him off of me. I said, "I do not want to have sex with you." He laughed at me and ended up punching me in my mouth, and I had to escape from his building. And yeah, so it was a really traumatic physical assault by this man that I didn't really know. Felt that I was nearly raped. But after this, I just decided to speak to my therapist and to block this guy who did that to me on all social media and let it fade away and try to get over it. Well, then I met my boyfriend a few months later, and he is also working in the tattoo world. And many times over our relationship, he's expressed that he really dislikes girls who, quote unquote, sleep around in the tattoo world. So being that I had heard that from him and that this experience for me was something that I just didn't really want to talk about, I didn't tell him about it until last week when I just blurted it out. I was feeling really guilty for keeping a secret from my man and for the subsequent lies that I told him to try to avoid that I ever knew this guy who is in his same work industry. My boyfriend freaked out. He threw my engagement ring off of our 5th floor balcony into a street. He called me a slut, a trashy whore, and a cliche American. So we got in a really big fight. It was horrible. I really saw that my boyfriend had some demons and some anger issues that I hadn't seen before. But over the last week, we've started to patch things up. He wants to get engaged again. He wants to get a new ring. He's given me a lot of heartfelt apologies, and he said that he understands why I didn't tell him about the experience and that, you know, he's just disappointed because he's going to have to swallow his anger and his hatred for that guy when he sees him out at a conference or in the street. And he told me that he just feels like I have a bad reputation in his work. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should get engaged again to my boyfriend. I feel like his response to me was really sexist and really borderline abusive. But I do love him, so I'm really conflicted. I would so appreciate your help.
But just to recap, you were sexually assaulted and very nearly raped a few months before you met this guy who within a year proposed to you. And then when you opened up to him about this assault, about this traumatic experience at 12 months into your relationship with him, which seems like not an unreasonable time to disclose something like this. Hey, I was raped by someone in your industry, or nearly raped by someone in your industry, isn't something you blurt out on a first date necessarily. It's not something you're obligated to disclose to someone you barely know. And you disclose this, and you feel terribly guilty about how long you waited, and you shouldn't, not at all. You shouldn't feel guilty at all about having waited. That's something that you tell someone that you've come to trust, not somebody you've just met. And he reacts by calling you a slut. He reacts by telling you that you have a bad reputation in his industry of rapey shitbags. I'm not saying all tattoo artists are rapey shitbags. I take that back. I retract that. In his little circle within that industry where everyone's a rapey shitbag, in that particular corner or pocket of tattoo land where he lives, you have a bad reputation. Because this asshole tried to rape you in a stairwell. You're the bad guy. And he throws your engagement ring out the window and he breaks up with you. Reminds me of that famous Maya Angelou quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. He showed you who he was at that moment. Sexist, violent, irrational, controlling, misogynistic, slut-shamey, rape culture saturated, poisoned piece of X. Piece of shit. Piece of X. Should be your ex. You got to believe him. What happens if you stay with this man? What happens if you take him back? You're a young woman in this culture, in this world. What do you think the odds are that some other man at some point in the future is going to behave inappropriately toward you on a bus, on a subway, on a street, in a stairwell, in an airport? The odds are, unfortunately, pretty high. Are you going to feel comfortable going to your perhaps then husband, if you marry this guy, if you make the mistake of marrying this guy, and confiding in him about what just happened to you? No, you're not going to be able to go to him for support. What happens if you got assaulted, raped by someone else, beaten, and you go home to what? What will you be going home and expecting at that moment? This isn't someone who's going to take your side. This isn't someone who you can expect, as a matter of course, is love and support and empathy and compassion. This is someone that you are going to have to tiptoe around for the rest of your life in fear of how he might react the next time you are victimized by some rapey asshole man. You say you love him. I'm sure there are parts of this person that are attractive, parts of his character that are admirable. No one is a shit in every respect, in every dimension. But this is disqualifying level crap. His reaction, disqualifying perhaps not of your fond remembrance, not of your affection, but disqualifying of making a commitment, disqualifying of being in a relationship with you or really any other woman. This should be disqualifying. You have to end this. You have to break up with him. Don't accept another ring from him. Run from him.
Hi, this is a comment for the woman in episode 510 who was wondering whether she could decline the invitation to the wedding. I'm getting married on Labor Day weekend, like thousands of your listeners, I'm sure, and I bet we all can agree that when you're making your guest list, you get a little nostalgic. You put on people from your past. But believe me, every time I get a decline from one of them, I do a little dance because it means I can invite someone else. And almost certainly the woman in question has a B list of people she'd really like to invite but hasn't been able to. So I think your caller should decline, should go drink a margarita, and her friend will be happy. Send a little note saying how sad you are you can't make it. That's all that's necessary.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling about the Canadian who is dating a suspected virgin. My words to him are, let her go. It sounds to me like you are not interested in going slowly with her or giving her the time it takes to explore her own sexuality, if in fact she even is a virgin, which you have not even verified. It sounds like you would be happier with a known and experienced fuck buddy. And yes, in my opinion, you indeed are an asshole.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling for the Canadian in episode 510. I was a slightly older virgin zombie that was fucked back to life by a man who was very sexually confident and experienced. Crawl into bed with her and find out if she's right for you, assuming she wants to fuck you. She's not going to unpop your cherry or steal your godly love-making powers. And don't forget, even you, the varsity expert, could learn something from her.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow Tegan and Sara on Twitter. And speaking of Twitter, Ellie Badesh tweets, Day Off Cup, hashtag Savage Love, hashtag Fuck First, and included a picture of her Fuck First Savage Love official swag mug. You can get the Savage Love mug, a Fuck First mug, at thestranger.com/savage swag. Get your Christmas shopping done now in the summer. And a big thank you to Aaron Gibson and Brian Safi for tackling the top of the show rant this week. Be sure to listen to their podcast, Throwing Shade. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for listening.